I also started to take faith and Mass a little bit more seriously because I was challenged because I was going to church, but I didn't really understand my faith, and as such, it was kind of boring. What a lot of people say, that Filipinos are kind and gracious and very hospitable, and some of that has certainly helped me in my ministering as a priest. Sadly so, there's a lot of poverty in the Philippines as well. I know that there are a lot of wealth that they have there, natural beauty and natural resources, but there is also a lot of poverty. And I think that poverty in spirit can help us to realize that.
And I'm curious, Father, what is your favorite Filipino recipe?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, I think going to Medjugorje certainly brought a more tangible experience of the Blessed Mother's role in my priesthood. I know there's a lot of Filipinos who have really been brainwashed by a lot of Protestants as well. And St. Francis of Assisi, he protested the sins of the Catholic Church. He reformed the Catholic Church, but he stayed inside the Catholic Church. I'm actually now just doing research on conspiracy theories and how some conspiracy theories are not conspiratorial at all. They're in fact very true.
What happened in the recent pandemic, there's also a conspiracy theory that are not conspiracy.
Of course, because we all know that there is a movement to try to reduce the world population. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Father. Before we start, can you first greet our viewers, our Filipino viewers here in the Philippines that are watching right now?
All right. Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be with you all, and I'm looking forward to our conversation and even talking a little bit about how my Philippine heritage has inspired me in my priesthood as well as in my work. I live in the Archdiocese of Baltimore, but I'm a consecrated secular institute priest, which allows me to do this unique work of combining food and faith. It's very Filipino.
Yeah. So, Father, thank you so much for joining us in our show. Many of our Filipino viewers are looking forward to this interview, and you have a bunch of followers here in the Philippines that are following you and your show. So, Father, for the benefit of our viewers that have seen you for the first time, can you first share a little bit background about who is Father Leo?
Yes, I am a priest of the community of consecrated life called Voluntas Dei, which means the will of God. I've been a priest since June the 5th, 1999. And as a priest, I've served in many capacities in parishes and teaching in seminary and working in different ministries across the church's experiences. But very uniquely, I'm also a professional chef. I host an international TV show called Savoring Our Faith on EWTN. I'm the founder of Plating Grace, a movement to bring families around the dinner table. I'm also the chairman of the Table Foundation, which also seeks to bring support to people in the hospitality industry. And I'm also the head chef of a food truck called Plating Grace and Grub. And so as a food truck owner, my job is to make sure we have amazing food, and we are an award-winning food truck, but we also hire some people coming out of the prison system or disadvantaged communities, as well as serving food to the poor. I'm the author of 5 books, and a couple of them are bestsellers, and I travel the world speaking and giving conferences, leading retreats, as well as pilgrimages. So I'm pretty busy these days.
And Father, can you share with us the story of your journey to priesthood? What inspired you to become a priest?
Well, many things. I think the prayers and the example of my family. Also, I think part of it was a pilgrimage that I went to as a young man. I went to Medjugorje in former Yugoslavia, now Bosnia-Herzegovina. And there I saw the church in a little bit more of a universal way. I also started to take faith and Mass a little bit more seriously because I was challenged because I was going to church, but I didn't really understand my faith. And as such, it was kind of boring. But then after doing some investigation and learning more about it, I realized that there is a real beauty and a real gift to it. So slowly and slowly, I started getting more involved in church, doing youth ministry, participating in the music group, teaching catechism to students. And then I started to realize that maybe God is calling me to give my life to the church. And so I did that. And since then, it's been a beautiful experience. It's challenging at times, for sure. I don't always live up to the ideals of the priesthood, but I know God is merciful. And as long as I'm faithful, which basically means when I fall, I get up and I try again. I believe that's the role of the priest, to not only give that faithfulness of God and forgiveness to people, but also to show it myself. I'm a human and I'm therefore broken, but trying to be faithful, which means I get up and I try again.
Wow. And many of our viewers know that you are a Filipino, Father Leo. And
Yes.
how has your Filipino heritage influenced both your faith and your approach to ministry?
Well, I think part of it is a devotional life. It's a very incarnational experience of faith in the Philippines. We have a very tangible way of expressing our faith, whether it be kissing statues or, touching holy images, and also, being devotional and making sure that the saints are not just dead people, but people who have died and are now alive in heaven, and making them a part of our family. So I think the incarnational aspect of faith is impressive in my soul. Also, the Filipinos are known for their hospitality. I think that's kind of what a lot of people say, that Filipinos are kind and gracious and very hospitable. And some of that has certainly helped me in my ministering as a priest, and also influenced me in my current ministry as the cooking priest, who does a lot with food and welcoming people, and showing that hospitality is something the church is supposed to offer.
As someone with Filipino roots, how do you see the role of Filipino culture and tradition in the global Catholic community?
Well, the simplicity of the life in the Philippines kind of allows the Philippines to have a more humble expression of faith. I think there is a great respect that Filipinos have for authority, which I think is helpful because, again, it speaks of humility. I also know that, for whatever reason, sadly so, there's a lot of poverty in the Philippines as well. I know that there are a lot of wealth that they have there, natural beauty and natural resources, but there is also a lot of poverty. And I think that poverty in spirit can help us to realize that you don't need money in order to be happy. I've met a lot of Filipinos who are very poor, but they still have smiles on their faces. They're very joyful. They have faith, and even if they're poor, they are very hospitable. They want to welcome you in, even into the poverty of their homes. And so that really speaks about something that the Philippines have. It's a level of humility, it's a level of simplicity, and I think that speaks to authenticity of faith. That despite the challenges, despite the struggles, they still have faith, and that's what gives them hope.
And as a chef and priest, Father Leo, how do you see the connection between food and faith? Very Filipino.
Well, it's very Catholic, actually, because Jesus himself would use food in so many ways to describe the faith, whether it be the size of a mustard seed or just talking about food all the time. His first miracle was the wedding feast of Cana and changing water to wine. His second miracle was the multiplication of loaves and fishes. He talked about how crumbs from the table were given to the dogs as a sign of healing. He ate with lepers and sinners and tax collectors and prostitutes, and eventually he will become the bread of life and the cup of eternal salvation.
Yes.
All I do in this particular theology of food, is what we call it, is we try to make connections to the fact that the Mass is a meal, and if the Catholic Church is a family, we are gathered around the Lord's table. And the domestic church, therefore, has the responsibility as a family to share those same blessings at their domestic church's altar, which is the dinner table.
And I'm curious, Father, what is your favorite Filipino recipe?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, I think
Adobo.
well, adobo is certainly part of it, but I do know that just I like things that are not very healthy, but I like crispy things. So I like the fried chicken. I certainly like the pork that is oftentimes like obviously lechon is delicious.
Lechon.
So there's a lot of really tasty things. I know that the Filipinos also like sweet meat, and so
Mm.
I think that's also very flavorful. And so, I think the Filipino cuisine is on its way to a more global stage.
Yeah. So what Filipino cuisine do you love to cook?
Do I like to cook? Well, actually, I don't cook a lot of it simply because I studied culinary in Italy. But I know that
Mm.
when I do cook things, it's generally in the realm of pancit and egg rolls, the lumpia.
Spaghetti.
So all of those things are pretty simple. I don't venture as much into the more unique things for the American
Mm.
palate, but there's just a lot, like whether it be pinakbet, whether it be kare-kare, those things are certainly delicious and I know how to make them. But generally when I cook for the public, it's a fusion. And so
Oh.
even on my food truck, I use the cornstarch noodle, the
Mm.
type of a pancit, and I use that with other sauces.
I'm curious, Father. Do you have a chance to live here in the Philippines with your family in your childhood?
I left the Philippines when I was 1.5. I came to America in 1962,
Oh.
and so it was. I've only lived there just for a year and a half of my life. I've
Mm.
returned to the Philippines on a few occasions, oftentimes just to visit family. More recently, at a conference with Bo Sanchez
Yeah.
several years ago, and there was a plan to return, but obviously COVID kind of changed those plans. And I'm fond of going to the Philippines. It's just very far, and unfortunately, my schedule doesn't always permit me
Yeah.
a lot of leisure time because I travel so much for my work as it is.
Mm. I see that you just went to World Youth Day to Lisbon.
I did not go to Lisbon, although I filmed just about 3 months
Ah,
prior, and I
okay.
was asked by the network to film 5 shows in
Mm.
Portugal, as well as some segments that were featured throughout all of the live coverage on EWTN. As a host on EWTN, they just asked me to create content that talks about the faith and the different cities of Portugal.
Father, can you share with us how the Blessed Mother influenced your faith? Because here in the Philippines, we are a Marian devotee.
Going to Medjugorje certainly brought
Mm.
a more tangible experience of the Blessed Mother's role in my priesthood. I
Wow.
think that Jesus wants us to have a strong relationship to Mary. He said that on the cross. I know that a lot of Protestants will criticize Catholics
Mm.
for having a devotion to Mary, but there's nothing unbiblical about it. Jesus himself was devoted to Mary, and so in a way, we have to follow Jesus. I studied Mariology when I was in the seminary. I studied in Rome, and my degree is in Mariology. So I have a great appreciation for the historical texts, the biblical interpretations, as well as understanding the miracles attributed to Marian apparition sites, and also a theological appreciation for the
Mm.
spiritual and sacramentary texts that relate to Mary. She is truly the way we were supposed to be, preserved from sin, and
Amen.
also stay sinless. At
Mm.
the same time, Mary received a preeminent grace, and so that gave her the strength to say no to sin. And as such, she became worthy of not only being Jesus' mother, but also the new Eve, the mother for all of those who are seeking
Mm.
to have a true, authentic relationship to God.
Yeah.
Mary is a spiritual mother to us all.
Yeah. Actually, I love what you said in your last video about assumption, that it's a common sense.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is
Yeah. We just need common sense. If Jesus loved Mary, then so should we. If Mary loved Jesus, then we should love Jesus the way Mary does. It's a lot of times people like to argue about Christianity,
yeah.
and that misses the point.
Do you always encounter with Protestants that are questioning our faith? Do you have those kind of dialogue with them?
No, because the people that I usually offer presentations to are generally Catholic already, but they are struggling in their Catholic faith.
Oh,
Criticisms that I get are generally people online who are nasty. They're just terrible people. They claim to be Christians, but the one thing that they lack in is the charity of Christ.
correct.
And so they become incredibly divisive. They're just antagonistic. They always go to ad hominem attacks, and so they attack my person as opposed to just what I believe. And then even if they want to attack what we believe, they're immediately calling us, Satan's child. It's actually kind of embarrassing for them because it shows their ignorance. It shows their lack of manners.
Correct.
It shows their lack of dignity. So I usually don't respond to it because first of all, I have no time for that. I mean, I have hundreds and thousands of followers and they might have 12, so I kind of don't care. I probably have to do a better job in praying for their conversion, but to be honest with you, I don't even read a lot of comments, so I don't even know what they're saying. But when I do, I usually I find it amusing in a pathetic and embarrassed for them kind of way. I know there's a lot of Filipinos who have really been brainwashed by a lot of Protestants as well, and I really pity them because they're leaving the beauty of their faith for what we call an economic understanding of faith, a prosperity gospel. They just think that they're going to be better because they believe in the Christian church, which was unfortunately a result of protesting something that was wrong in the Catholic Church. Certainly, the sale of indulgences and maybe the simony, those are bad stains in the Catholic Church. But the practice was not a reflection of what we believe.
Correct.
It was a reflection of the corruption that happens in any organization. And thankfully, we've had reformers, Protestant reformers, people who protested but stayed Catholic. The most perfect example of that is St. Francis of Assisi. He protested the sins of the Catholic Church. He reformed the Catholic Church, but he stayed inside the Catholic Church.
Oh, it's great to know that, Father. I don't even know that St. Francis.
He's a reformer, and he was a protester of the injustices in the Catholic Church. That's why he started the Franciscan movement. This was in the 12th century. This is 300 years prior to Luther's protestations. And so we have to know that had Luther stayed in the Catholic Church while also criticizing the injustices and the abuse that comes from money, he probably could have been a great saint.
For sure. Yeah. So, Father, many of our viewers knows that you are also martial arts. So how was your background in martial arts influence and approach to your ministry?
Well, it really hasn't because I just, did that as a young man. I use it sometimes whenever I'm talking about spiritual combat because there is a need to fight against evil. And so I kind of use some of the principles of martial arts. My brother still has a martial arts school and he teaches Taekwondo as well as the Eskrima, the Philippine martial art, also known as Arnis or Kali. There's so many different names. And he uses a lot of good Christian ethic to teach his students. And so he's had some success in even bringing converts to the Catholic faith. So I think martial arts has a place in our life because it teaches us how to protect ourselves and it teaches us personal discipline and humility and obedience. And if you put these techniques in God's hands, we can apply it to our own lives in a spiritual way and talk about how we are called to be soldiers for Christ and fight against evil.
Amen. You've been successful in using modern media platform for evangelization. What advice would you give to other religious leaders who want to do the same?
Well, I don't know if I've had success. I mean, the number of followers might be seen as success, but, you compare my numbers to like a Hollywood celebrity and I'm nothing compared to their success. But I think that if we measure success only in terms of numbers, and we forget quality, because it's not just quantity, it's also quality. And there have been people who have expressed gratitude for going on social media and either speaking out against the injustices as well as some of the brainwashing that has happened, because social media can do that, but also inspired by some of the stories that we've told and educated because of our teachings. I don't know if every person should be on social media, to be honest with you. I think that it's a calling to be on social media. And I've seen, unfortunately, a lot of silly things on social media about the Catholic Church. And to be honest, I think it's a waste of their energy and our time. So I'd rather have them be listeners rather than content creators. Not everyone should be content creators. The Catholic Church is very backwards in terms of technology. We aren't very good with it. We're always slow to approach it. It was only during COVID that they discovered, Zoom.
Online.
Everything is Zoom. And it's sad because it really shows how backwards we are. However, it can be used properly by people who are professionals. So if people are professional with regards to technology, then they should use their gifts. That's kind of what I do now on my own YouTube show called The Father Leo Show.
Father Leo, yeah.
Which really is trying to use social media in teaching the faith. And our tagline is dishing out faith, culture, and commentary. And so that's what's keeping me busy these days, is creating content for our YouTube platform.
I was blessed by your commentary about the artificial intelligence. It's very relevant.
Yeah, we're trying to address a lot of the relevant topics. We have a lot of shows already recorded and basically in the editing room. We're going to be talking about transgenderism. We're going to be talking about revolution, abortion, and even politics, because it is replacing religion. I'm actually now just doing research on conspiracy theories and how some conspiracy theories are not conspiratorial at all. They're in fact very true.
Wow.
So really pay attention.
I'm looking forward on that content that you will publish on YouTube.
Thank you. Me too.
Do you think what happened in the recent pandemic, there's also a conspiracy theory that are not conspiracy?
Of course. Yeah. You can see that by the level of hypocrisy that was quite visible to the whole world, where world leaders kept talking about locking down and they themselves didn't follow it. They talked about how the vaccines were so important and necessary to return to kind of our old way of living, but it did more destruction in many cases than it did good. We talked about all the people who experienced COVID and died from it, but we didn't talk about the hundreds and thousands of people who have been sickened or even experienced death because of the vaccines. Everyone talked about wearing face masks.
Yeah.
All of the doctors told us that it's more than anything a psychological aid than actual good practice. We were actually breathing unhealthy things, and my gosh, the masks were made of just cloth, and that doesn't do anything. Everyone told us that we have to stay 6 feet apart, and they put stickers everywhere that we're not 6 feet apart. So there was truly a desire to try to control the population, the mind, but also to even control the numbers of people on Earth, because we all know that there is a movement to try to reduce the world population.
Yes.
And COVID is certainly what I would call a test run for these world governments to try to control humanity, take away freedoms, use fear to manipulate us into submission. So that's not me speaking as a conspiracy theorist. That's just, again, common sense.
Yeah. And I've seen it personally on my friends and relatives that has been job, and after a few days, months, they get sick. Some of them died. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's sad. Unfortunately, world government organizations are misrepresenting data. And I'm not a doctor. I'm just doing the research. So I'm not coming as an authority on the issue. I'm coming as an observer and just using, again, common sense in critical thinking. So these are some of the things that I'll be talking about in my monologue about conspiracy theories. But so that's why the Father Leo show is so needed, because it's not just any person talking. I am a Catholic priest. I do have a few degrees in theology, so I'm speaking also as a theologian, but also someone who has a very unique background in being able to understand not only the church world, but the secular world. And so I'm sure I have a lot of unique experiences, not just as a priest in America, but also with a Filipino background. But I studied in Europe and I travel around the world. So I'm putting together my experiences and sharing that with you with an intent to be more pastoral, to help people kind of find their way to truth in the midst of all of this confusion. And there is a lot of confusion.
Wow. Our viewers will be blessed to your future content.
Yeah, they just have to go to YouTube, go to the Father Leo show, click subscribe, and if they're willing to support, to just do something and support us on Patreon, because the quality of our show is good. It takes a lot of money to produce these shows.
I understand.
So people can kind of help support that, because it's going to help us in our ability to research appropriately and to have quality shows that are appealing and good to watch.
So how do you balance your time between your responsibility as a priest and your work as a chef and an author, and now a content creator?
Yeah, well, I've always been a content creator. I've always been in the kitchen. My priesthood is now since 1999, and I think the balance is to make sure that we have our eyes focused on Christ while we're doing all these things, because all of these things are directed for the glory of God, to build up His kingdom, to promote the faith, to spread the good news. So even if I'm working on the food truck, or if I'm doing an event while I'm cooking for thousands of people, if I'm speaking to an organization, if I'm traveling and leading pilgrimages, whether I'm doing something in the kitchen or in front of a congregation at Mass, all of that should be directed towards God.
What role do you think the family meal plays in fostering faith and unity in the family, especially in a Filipino context?
It's essential to raising the family in a healthy way, because it communicates that you love your children enough that you're willing to spend time with them, as well as make sure that they are being properly fed. And so it is an essential part of what I would call our healthy upbringing.
Father, can you tell us about your latest book, what our readers can expect from it?
Dining with the Saints was published at the beginning of Lent of this year of 2023, and it catalogs several saints each month for the entire year with biographical, and sometimes it's always interesting, but sometimes even humorous stories or allegories about the saints, as well as the food that is oftentimes associated to them. And so it required me to collaborate with Dr. Michael Foley. I did a lot of the research in terms of investigating the food that have been historically attributed to the saints. Wow. And so I created recipes, as well as what we call a food for thought kind of thing, where how do these saints affect us in our life today? How can we be inspired by these saints and share that inspiration to our children at the dinner table.
Can you share a significant moment or encounter from your ministry that has deeply moved you?
Well, there's many things, but I think working with the poor has been helpful. Experiencing conversions of people after a good confession or after going on a retreat. And then also just, seeing people grow closer to God and being enlightened by the simple things like Eucharistic adoration. So there's quite a lot there that have been inspired.
What message would you like to leave with our viewers, especially to those who are struggling with their faith or family relationship?
I think that a meal shared with one another can help heal relationships. And that has to begin when we have a more developed appreciation of the sacred meal that we have with Jesus. So a stronger relationship to the Eucharist can lead to a stronger relationship with each other. And I always just want to tell people to remain hungry for God.
Wow. Amen. That's powerful, Father. Why you love being Catholic?
Well, I love being Catholic because the word basically means the fullness of truth. And that's why, when you enter into the Catholic faith, once you get a taste of it, you're going to realize that God has even more that he can offer to you. And so the Catholic faith truly feeds us body, mind, and spirit.
Where they can follow you, is there something do you want to promote to them?
You can learn everything about the ministry, from the merchandise that we have as resources, to my travels, to my speaking engagements, as well as my TV show, and now the new online show, the Father Leo Show on YouTube. Just go to platinggrace.com. That's platinggrace. And that is a way to find out everything about what we're doing to feed people.
Any last word, Father Leo, to our viewers right now, before we ask you for a closing prayer and blessing for those who are watching right now?
Nothing more than what I've already said. So thank God for this opportunity, and we ask God's blessings on you, your work, and all of those who watch. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen.
Amen. Wow, thank you so much, Father, for such an amazing interview, for all the sharing wisdom that you share to us right now. I'm sure many Filipino and our viewers that are watching here will be impacted by all your wisdom. Thank you so much, Father, and we will continue to pray for you and for your ministry.
Thank you, and God bless you all. Bye-bye.
God bless, Father.
Hello mga ka-faith, Brother Adrian Milag here. Alam nyo, bilang isang Catholic content creator, madalas akong nakaka-receive ng message na nagtatanong sa akin, Adrian, paano ba magdasal ng rosaryo? Paano ba ako magsisimula? Turuan mo naman ako. And good news, kung isa ka sa nag-i-struggle na magdasal ng Santo Rosario, meron akong exciting news na ibabalita para sa'yo. Alam nyo, sabi ni Padre Pio, Our Lady has never refused me a grace through the recitation of the Rosary. Kaya gusto kitang i-encourage, kung may struggle ka sa pagdarasal ng Rosaryo, ay meron ng solusyon para dyan mga ka-faith. At gusto ko ipakilala sa inyo ang Follow Up para matutunan nyo kung paano magdasal ng Rosaryo. So ano nga ba ang Follow Up? Ang Follow Up ay ang #1 Catholic app sa buong mundo. Dito sa Follow Up, napakadaling gamitin at dito merong way kung paano ka pwedeng i-guide paano magdasal ng rosary. Step by step tuturuan kayo at meron ding mga daily prayers na napakasimple na pwedeng makatulong sa inyo. And good news, meron ng Tagalog version dito ng Follow Up para magdasal ng rosaryo. So mga ka-faith, i-download nyo lang ang Follow Up for free. Libre lang po ang Follow Up. At pwede nyo nang i-download yan sa inyong mga mobile, okay, sa inyong mga cellphone. Kung iOS yan or Google App Store yung ginagamit mo, libre nyo lang madadownload ang Follow Up. Kaya mga ka-faith, tara, explore po natin ang Follow Up at simulan natin ang journey, especially sa ating panalangin at ang ating pananampalataya bilang Katoliko. So thank you and God bless.
So that's it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope na na-bless at na-inspire ka dito sa aking vlog. Make sure na i-like mo at mag-comment ka sa baba ng video na to at mag-subscribe ka sa aking YouTube channel para lagi kang updated sa mga bagong vlog na gagawin ko. At huwag mo din kakalimutan na i-like ang aking page. So this been Adrian Milag, encouraging you to live your life to the fullest. God bless you more abundantly.